To Artist in Recovery / Darryl P. from Weaver John C. of Roseman, California, the schmuck that does the Diary of a Griever named John Weaver, which is me. Morning, dude. What's going on? It's been a while since I talked to you. Or talked at you, anyway. It is... I'll turn this CPAP off. It is June 6th, Saturday, 2026. Time index right now is 1:06 in the morning. I love a topic you mentioned concerning about people getting dumber and dumber. I swear to God, you may be right. You may be right. What was it a long time ago? People thought we were smart in the United States, and times are changing. We thought we knew everything. We thought we were doing everything. And yes, they wrote differently. 1700s. The letters that were generated. Revolutionary War, then 1800s when you talked about the Civil War. But also how a famous Mississippi River character or caricature would talk about life on the river. And I had never read the books before. Heard about the author. Mr. Clemens invented himself a non-declaimant. Non-de-bloom? Oh, good Lord, I'm losing it today. I wouldn't know that night. I would know the terminology. An alternate ID. A caricature he could use. A non-de-bloom. Mark Twain. He would write about life on the river of the Mississippi. And you would look at the language that he'd used. Growing up and going to school, heard about the books, but I never did read them. Unfortunately, it was like the books were in the library, in the elementary school library, in a junior high library, and a senior high. But I never did continue English courses in that time to read those books. No, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury. And we're dealing with Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And the most controversial one was the 1984. I heard much about the book, but I never understood something about it. I remember there was a Halloween, and I dressed up as something called Thought Police. I had a motorcycle helmet with a sign that said Thought Police on it. Did it ever occur to me at the time what that meant? And quite frankly, no, I didn't have the curiosity during that time. I wish I had. I was reading books about science concerning about astronomy. Engineering wasn't exactly all my greatest. No, it wasn't. Fantasy writing, maybe. Dungeons and Dragons, okay, fine, I can get into that thing. But to understand what a laboratory CERN would mean, or even space program I was living under, yeah. Who would have thought that there was a student in high school that actually had received in the mail the blueprints for the Space Shuttle Enterprise? Or NASA tech briefs. I barely remember what the guy looked like. He was an engineer with NASA. Before I got into junior high, just about in there, my mother and I went out to see the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Because I was turning out to be a sci-fi nut. I was watching a lot of shows they had back then. But I was also trying to keep track of science as well. I felt like I was a nerd. I had a toy of the space shuttle. Didn't realize what the hell the damn thing was. All I know was a plastic toy and I could drown that thing in water. Dry it off and play with it. Did it ever occur to me when I got it from the local Wilbur's, brought it over to lunch counter over at Bob's Big Boy, and I would meet a NASA engineer. He didn't work over at Plant 42. He worked at Edwards Air Force Base, but bounced from there to Plant 42. He worked on the space shuttle program. And I'm talking to him as if I was intelligent. He saw something in me because I did something that my mother never thought I would do. Hand the guy my name and address. And the next thing I know, this guy was in the same audience. He could have been a stalker at the time. But he may have saw something in me that sparked. So for 2 or 3 years, I had received in the mail, almost on a monthly basis, NASA tech briefs on a lot of things. I wish I had a knowledge or a basis of engineering understanding. Because this is the things that an engineer would understand and learn about. And then here comes the unofficial material concerning about a space shuttle program. Hey, shut up. I had it for several years until I lost the damn thing. I wish I had it still. But something of that material, I think, landed with the Russians. That's how they got their own similar program. You know, the funny thing between the United States and Russia during the 70s and 80s, compared to now, is how much material did we throw into military today compared to what Russia was doing just before the fall of their empire? How many places did they try to conquer? Sometimes succeeding and sometimes failing. And in the end, they lost it all. I keep seeing that in our country right now. Darryl, sometimes it scares the crap out of me. About how we're getting to that point. How we're going to go bankrupt at this point. I remember reading material and watching videos about how the people in Russia struggled with empty shelves. If they were lucky, they got a few things to live and survive on. I keep asking myself, are we going to be ending up in the same situation? Who's going to be owning our ass? You were talking about people being intelligent and how they were getting the hell out of Dodge. They called it the brain drain. They had issues over this one back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s as well. If I could try remembering the history on this one. They were always worried that if we had people educated here in the United States, even if they were coming from abroad, we would lose competitive edge as every other country would have. They gained our knowledge, our wisdom, our skills through their immigrations and student visas. And they would go teach in their own countries medical skills. We had given the world more than what we should have kept. We're a free society. We weren't going to lock up anybody because they were getting educated, getting intelligent, using that intelligence for their own reasons. They grabbed the students coming into the college programs would use those skills, go back home, change their world, leaving our world a lot lesser. It's been a slow drain, not a mad rush like we're seeing right now. In schools that I was going through, public education always had an issue with the private sector. Because the private sector had the money. Public didn't. Public had to scrape by with whatever we could salvage, whatever kind of funding we would get through the state program. You see, California, we depend upon the attendance of people, attendance of the students, K through 12. It always hurt the schools when they couldn't retain the students in the educational system, because each student was money coming into the school that they would need to survive. And when there was an output of failure, students getting tired, sick and tired of what was going on in there, and decided they wanted to leave. They ditch. The absences would grow. The schools would go nuts over it. Money was leaching out. The LA Unified School District was one of those systems that still needed improvement for a long time. I remember watching a movie, Lean on Me, Morgan Freeman played an actual, if you call him, hero. He was trying to save and salvage his neighborhood, the students. He was trying to keep their school open, alive, and away from state takeover. I watched this film. I didn't read the papers concerning about his exploits on the West Coast because we didn't hear anything about it. I didn't hear anything about the exploits of this guy. But if he had been in the LA school system, it would have railroaded his ass. We had Jaime Escalante, an actual engineer, teaching math, teaching algebra, teaching trigonometry, teaching calculus, in a school that was not known for that, but its dropout rates. And this guy, intelligent as hell, with a hell of a lot of compassion, turned that school around because he poured it into these students. The movie, Stand and Deliver, that was about Jaime Escalante. East Los Angeles. Why wasn't he in the San Fernando Valley? We could have used a lot of them over there. We could have cloned them somehow and then saved and salvaged our districts enough. This guy was phenomenal. They made a movie of him. I watched this movie again and again and again. We had a ton of movies coming out in the 80s talking about our screwed up systems and how these teachers, these substitute teachers, these guys were the heroes. These fought like hell in bureaucracy and ignorance to bring things out of these students. These were the films about real life. I may have used some they may have used personas, caricatures, nom de plumes. But these guys were the heroes. In my junior high, Patrick Henry Junior High in Granada Hills, California, between 79 and 81, I attended 3 years in there. We had a science group that could not be beat. We had a Science 9 booster club that if you were in the 9th grade and your grades are up there, you could join these guys in the club and you go on trips. You earn the money the hard way to get your trips going, but you would go. You'd see an observatory, you'd see a canyon, you'd see the coastline, forests, landscape, things that would cry out, look at me, see me, and wonder. You take out a telescope, set it up on a mountain or hill, and see the stars for the first time. And then really, really wonder about it. Or these teachers, experts in their own fields. One of them worked on the Apollo program as an engineer. Worked on the engines. Worked on Saturn. His name was Albert Squattrito. A niece of his went to the same company I did in 2000s. I wish I remembered her name, but I remember the last name she shared, Squattrito. This guy was phenomenal in the courses he taught. He and 4 others, actually 3 others, Munch, Nadell, Goldsworthy. Goldsworthy was about the same age group or a little older than Squattrito. And he was a chemist. He made us. Actually, he showed us and had us make oobleck, the weirdest damn stuff I ever seen. And then also make fluoride toothpaste. But it was the interesting part about about learning about chemistry. Squattrito was engineering and astronomy. Nadell and Munch also dealt with physics. I barely survived because I kept believing I wasn't intelligent enough. My mathematical skills sucked. I couldn't even get past algebra. I couldn't even get past algebra in our damn school system. When I graduated out of high school, dude, I took consumer math for the last math class, instead of getting through trig or calculus. I couldn't even get past algebra. But I could get through consumer math and understand how to navigate your way in a supermarket. It's embarrassing to tell people about that, even to this day. But there was a little bit redeeming thing I did in my adulthood when I was going to college personally. I took a class that said mathematics for liberals. Instead of thinking about mathematical formulas, A plus B equals C, or A times B equals C, A squared times B squared equals X. It was all about using mathematical principles in our daily lives. And I did not realize this one, that in order for me to figure out how to put things in perspective, how to keep balancing each month, I showed him that in an end of class project, how mathematics was affecting me a great deal. Polygons, he wanted me to talk about geometrical, how things would affect me a great deal in artistry. When you see leaves changing their chemical composition through seasons, and you would see mathematics in there because it's chemical. I took pictures of that. But I also explained it to them about the things I did to balance a checkbook and the steps I did and still do. To them it's mathematical and it's algebraic. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm the guy who hated math all my life because I couldn't understand algebra. I could deal with basic math. Yeah, take out a calculator and use that. But the long form still needed because you didn't have a calculator, you got to do it by the head. So, do it by the head, no problem. I also learned how to be a bit of a bookkeeper, learning about assets, liabilities, capital, debits versus credits, what's your expense account versus your income coming in, and then try to come up with the formulas on that one. Look at your own checkbook if you had it, the old-fashioned checkbooks. You had your beginning balance. Every month you had your beginning balance, and then you had to keep track of everything after that. This was the basic math that I was taught. But it got weirder when I kept thinking about how to balance everything out. I'll do another video on this one here.